Hey, it's Don Coscarelli, filmmaker. I just wrote a book. Check it out. It's called Fiction Tales from the World of Phantasm. And it can teach you all the things that you never knew about the Phantasm film series. A lot of interesting stuff. Horror, violence, not much sex. Check it out. Now available on Amazon, paperback, and Kindle.
This is The Gala Show. I'm your reporter on the beat, Gala Avary. On this episode, happy 4th of July. It's Independence Day here in the United States of America, and there's only one person I have on my show during the holidays. You'll know him as the dude on Video Archives who loves movies like Moonraker, The Great Waldo Pepper, and Rollerball, the Academy Award-winning writer of Pulp Fiction, and the guy who has to release Glitterati for the public. But here on The Gala Show, I know him as the guy who always makes sure I have a snack in my car so I don't get hangry. He's no stranger to my show. Please welcome back to the mic, Roger Avary. Hey, Dad.
Hi, Gala. Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July. I think we're going to go watch the fireworks, probably. I assume. Maybe. From our house, actually. We can see them usually from our house.
Climb up onto the hill and try to avoid
the crowds.
The snakes that...
when you mean snakes, like you mean like the literal snakes in the grass.
The snake that gets chopped up into 13 pieces that represents, don't tread on me. Don't tread on me. Freedom from tyranny.
Well, before we bring up your topic for today, Dad, I have a question for you. What is the number one food that you like to eat on the 4th of July?
Oh.
Yeah, because this is kind of like a special thing because usually like in America, I think you grill. And I have a lot of international listeners, so maybe they don't know what like the traditional 4th of July foods are.
Well, our household is vegetarian, but we have in the past had smart dogs, these veggie
dogs.
These fake hot dogs, which are, how when they make
real hot dogs,
fake meat, they use all that bloopity bloop stuff, and
that's also how they just make hot dogs in general, I think.
And then this is the stuff that they normally mix in with the hot dogs.
Is that true?
And then they just don't have any stuff that they mix it in with.
So it's just like the filler?
I have no idea, but it's highly processed, and I try to avoid it these days. However, the first thing that came into my mind when you said that was, and I went boom, boom, boom. I had three things that popped into my head.
Okay, what were the three things?
The first one was hot dogs. Like, we make hot dogs on 4th of July. What's more America than a Wurst, comes from Germany, than a hot dog? And, you go to the streets of New York, what are you going to eat? You're going to eat a hot dog. I'll have mine Polish or whatever. And then the second thing that popped into my head, because I was like, no, I'm not eating hot dogs anymore, was baked beans.
That's funny. That was and I wonder if your last thing is the same thing that popped into my head.
And I would normally put baked beans on my hot dog. I would
How would you load your hot dog?
I would load my hot dog with mustard. There's a big debate about ketchup or not among the hot dog community. And some people say, ketchup on the right, hot dog on the left. I mean, mustard on the left, mustard on the right.
What?
Mustard, hot dog.
There's like a space thing. There's like you put like mustard on the bun.
Ketchup and mustard on either side of the dog. And then, you got to layer some onions in there, some relish, all that stuff. And then I would add beans to it, and really make
and sometimes cheese too. You can have a cheese dog.
You have to have cheese. Like, the thing is, I'm more about the condiments because being a vegetarian, you get more into the condiments than you do into the actual hot dog, which is just
filler food anyway.
It's a piece of styrofoam that they've somehow made edible. And
the Bush's baked beans are vegan.
Yeah,
they have like the vegan beans.
Yeah, we have the vegan beans,
so good.
Which to my mind are, as good as any beans I've ever had out of a can.
They're really good.
And so, so beans. And then the third thing that popped into my head immediately after that, because I was like, you can't have beans. Beans aren't enough, or beans aren't right, but beans obviously were number two. The third one was potato salad.
Oh, okay. I have a third one that you didn't say that I thought of.
Yeah, and then the question comes: is it an Italian potato salad or a German potato salad?
Oh, always German.
Yeah, always German.
German is vinegar based.
Über alles potato salad, Deutschland. Yeah.
No, it's because well, first off, I have an egg allergy, so I can't eat mayo based potato salad.
Isn't there like vegan mayo?
Yeah, there's vegan mayo
Made out of the
but
same stuff that they make the hot dogs out of?
the canola oil.
Just solidified canola oil.
I like
which, by the way, stands for the Canadian Oil Company.
From the rapeseed, yeah.
Which was rapeseed. And the rapeseed in Canada, they figured out a way to make an engine lubricant out of it. And so thus was created the Canadian Oil Company. And after a while, they were like, we could make a lot of money if we could actually make this digestible.
We could feed this to people.
We could feed
Not
this
even
to
make
people.
it digestible, just have people eat it.
And they spent like millions and millions of dollars jamming that through. Those Canadians pushed that through the FDA. And now everybody eats canola oil, which is like a toxic seed.
Well, for me, actually, potato salad, I don't really mind if it's vinegar or veganaise based. And some people say veganase. I would say veganaise.
Vegan. Those are the really hardcore vegans.
Those are the really hardcore vegans. Say veganase. For me, it's coleslaw has to be vinegar based. I cannot have a mayo based coleslaw. I hate it. The other food that I was going to say that you didn't bring up was corn.
Well, yeah, I mean,
corn is like the most American
it's
food.
It's true. Corn should have been my number
if
one.
Ever was
in fact, I didn't think of corn, but I would have eventually arrived there, of course.
Like creamy corn, creamy butter corn.
Yeah, and I think and I actually like corn. I used to, when I was a kid, what I used to do is I would take a slice of bread, and I think some movie taught this to me. I'm sure it was like John Candy in a film, or I don't know, for some reason I have a feeling, I can't remember who it was. There's some actor, though, who did it. Maybe it's Tom Hanks, who just slathered butter onto a piece of bread with like just an enormous amount of butter.
An ungodly amount of butter.
Yeah, into it. And then you just slap that corn in there and you just twist it around while holding the bread. That's a good way to put
the butter on.
Yeah, and that way your hand doesn't get, any butter on it. And the line in the movie was, and I think it must be Tom Hanks. I just don't remember the movie. And if anybody knows, please tell me. The line in the movie was, he's explaining to somebody at a party, still the best way to butter your corn. I'm just going to hazard a guess and say that it was The Big Chill. And maybe it was Jeff Goldblum actually saying that. Still the best way to butter your corn.
One random aside.
Maybe it was Kevin Kline, or is Kevin Kline the dead one?
I actually haven't seen that movie, but I'm going to throw one aside in. I was talking to someone. I went to a 16 millimeter screening of The Prowler last night through Film Power in the Valley. And I was talking with someone last night, and I was telling them there are certain actors that like men love. And Jeff Goldblum's one of them. Like, men just love Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum, Ryan Gosling, Nick Cage. Those are like three actors that I find that guys just love.
I admit, I love Jeff Goldblum. It's inexplicable.
See,
I can't understand why.
And there's something about him I just don't like. But I think that he has like a huge like.
Well, you're not a man.
Thank God
that
for
violates the
thanks
axiom.
Thanks for pointing that one out, Dad.
But it violates the axiom of all men, or it doesn't violate it, but it's not necessarily.
But I noticed
true or false.
There is
unlike men who all love Jeff Goldblum.
Every single man loves. If you don't love Jeff Goldblum, you're not a man. Okay.
Well, we all identify with Brundlefly and
Powder.
No, actually, my favorite. My favorite. That's actually a crazy analogy, but my favorite Jeff Goldblum movie is actually the Robert Altman movie Beyond Therapy, where they're in this little bar and it's like a little play going. I mean, Beyond Therapy was a play, so it's not a little play; it's an actual play, but it's this kind of just all these people in this bar. I still don't even know what the movie is about, but I love Jeff Goldblum in it because every time he approaches somebody, like he starts crying, but he's not pulling the actual tears. He's using eyedropper. And he's like putting eye drops in and kind of like with an eye. I don't know. It sounds really stupid now, but when I saw the movie, I loved it. It was really funny. And so I've liked Jeff Goldblum ever since. And actually, Jeff Goldblum is a good person to bring up today, not because I'm talking about Independence Day, the movie, but because he was in Independence Day, the movie.
Oh, yeah.
And he saved the world.
Well, I think actually that brings us into my next question. Dad, what is your topic for today on Independence Day?
My topic on Independence Day is independence. And I'm not sure if that's independence with a C at the end or if it's independence, like independent filmmakers, but it's kind of independence and independence. Maybe it's independence/independence or vice versa.
Can't say that 5 times fast.
This would be a good time for a commercial break.
I might be vegetarian, but that doesn't mean I can't enjoy a good spice rub. My favorite place to get them is Smoked Bros, a veteran-owned and operated business that sells premium handcrafted dry rubs, spice blends, and seasonings. Psst, guys, you can even put it on your popcorn. My favorites are Honey Badger, because he doesn't give a bleep, and jelly and peanut flavor topping, because some things just taste better together. The website even has recipes, so go check out smokedbros.com to support a veteran-owned and operated business and fill your cabinet with delicious flavor.
And we're back.
You heard it here. We are going to be talking about Independence Independent. I have 30 minutes on the clock, and our time starts now. So when we were kind of talking about like what we were going to talk about today, because Dad and I were going through like movies that we could talk about, like we said, okay, we could talk about Galaxy Quest. And then we were like, I don't know, like there's so much that you can talk about. Of course, Dad was like, you can talk about Independence Day. We were trying to think about Born on the 4th of July.
Like, I mean, come on. Like, there's got to be some other movie other than like. And then I thought, well, maybe Blowout. Blowout would be a really interesting movie with the political climate that's going on and all the political allegories that are stuffed inside of Blowout, which is a spectacular movie, one of Quentin's favorite films, and has one of the great Independence Day moments in it. However, like I don't really want to get in depth into that film, and Quentin really should be talking about that one. So I thought
hopefully we'll get that on Video Archives, because I actually have an idea for a sequel to Blowout. I think I've told you this because
don't tell me now.
Okay, well I guess
your sequel to Blowout.
My sequel to Blowout. I guess I won't tell you right now.
No, maybe you should tell me.
No.
Is it called? Like
it has no title
July
yet.
5th?
No, it has no title yet. But you know how he is a sound editor, and at the very beginning of the movie, he is editing the horror movie, and he needs to find the scream. And then, spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen Blowout, but he uses her scream when she dies to finish the movie. And so my, like, sequel, quote unquote, would be about a bunch of kids who love horror movies and have read on, like, Snopes that that's the truth. And they go on like a little investigation to figure out.
Oh, that's a real scream.
That's a real scream.
That girl, that scream that they used. That was a real scream. And it's like, yeah, who cares? No, it's like Hollywood Babylon, man.
Yeah.
They like really used it.
And then they go and they track down the John Travolta character, and he's still hiding
from the mob.
That's
like
like
something out of that book Flicker.
Yeah, and he's still hiding from the mob. And so then they get caught up like in the whole mob thing. So that's my idea. That's mine. No one else's.
Well, that's actually kind of cool, actually. John Travolta, like just an old sound engineer.
Like
He's just living in like Thousand Oaks or something.
Yeah, living in Reseda.
Yeah, hiding out.
From the
just
mob.
he's got like a little studio, but everybody's doing everything on AI now.
What a sad movie. So anyway, we were talking about all these things. We also said Born on the 4th of July, but to be...
Yeah, and then I was like, okay, Born on the 4th of July. Okay, I love that movie, and I love Tom Cruise in that movie. I mean, I know you have problems with that film.
Okay, but the problem with that movie for me is like, there's that scene, he's in the wheelchair, and like, I think they have the hookers come over or something on 4th of July.
Yeah. The whole movie is uncomfortable moments of Ron Kovic's life. You know,
when you look up pictures of Born on the 4th of July, there's just one of like Tom Cruise, like bent over, like, it's just like not attractive. I don't think it's meant to be attractive.
It almost can't be stated enough what it meant in that moment when Tom Cruise was like, I mean, the Tom Cruise moment was happening.
It still is happening.
And suddenly he's doing a performance where his head is shaved like that. It's like Ron Kovic, and he's having a freak out and pulling his catheter out and just spraying it all over the place.
It's so gross.
Yeah, it's just such a crazy, crazy movie, and it's so great, and he gives himself so much to it, and it's but that's not the movie we're talking about.
No, actually, we're not even talking about
We could talk about The Patriot with Mel Gibson.
I don't even think I've seen that.
And actually that's a movie I'd really like to see again that I didn't give like enough,
respect for? Or, like,
respect
you
at
didn't,
all.
like,
Like in the
look
time
at-
I don't know what happened. I saw the movie and it just didn't click with me. But I'll bet that if I watch that movie again, I'll connect with it.
just looked up like Independence Day movies. Okay, 1776.
Right.
People are saying Jaws. Does Jaws
Well, yeah,
take place on the 4th of July?
that takes place on the weekend. That's why the beach is so full of people.
yeah.
Why the bay is so full of
People.
people. It's the biggest holiday of the year. Everybody's going to be out there.
And I guess The Sandlot is a 4th of July movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't
apparently.
know.
I wouldn't know.
I actually would
either.
like to see The Sandlot. I own it. Actually, I own it on
I've
DVD.
never seen The Sandlot either. Actually, yesterday when I saw The Prowler, the reason why they screened The Prowler was because that was the day that The Prowler takes place. And so, like, when I went home, I was like, oh my God, there's a Prowler. I'm going to run to my house and, like, make sure I'm safe. So we are not talking about any of those movies after our, like, little preamble. We are going to be talking about independence and independence. So, Dad, what is independence?
Independence is freedom from tyranny.
So when we were talking about like independence, because I think one of the cool things to talk about actually is independent filmmaking.
Well, you know what it was is I think when I think about what the 4th of July represents and what it represents to me, one, it represents freedom to think and speak,
to express.
freedom to express my ideas without tyranny, without tyranny holding me back, and I feel blessed to have grown up and to have lived in a world where I could make the kind of movies that I make, which are they're sometimes challenging, in that aspect where not everybody wants to hear you.
Well, also,
so-
one thing that's interesting is, like, yes, you are an American, like, you grew up here, but, like, you are technically, I remember when I realized you're technically an immigrant.
Yeah, and not only that, I'm an anchor baby.
Yes, my dad is an anchor baby.
Yeah, I was born in Canada and
but, like, anchored to the wrong country.
anchored to the wrong country. But my dad was an American and my mom a German, coming to this country, immigrating to this country. And
Yeah, for those of you that don't know what an anchor baby is, an anchor baby is a baby that keeps you in a country, basically, that, like, you have a child so that you can stay in that country. And so my poor father was the anchor to keep my grandmother in the United States, essentially.
Well, I was also shown a lot of love. So
Well, of course you were.
I wasn't just treated like an anchor. But I'll bet anchors are well loved by the shipmates.
No, but
I bet they polish that anchor when it's pulled up.
Aren't you also part of that, like, strange generation that is only, like, what, like, it's 10 years, like, the silent generation, or, like, what is that called? Do you know what I'm talking about?
My dad's generation?
No, not your dad's, your generation. Like the latchkey kids.
I don't know.
can't
I think
remember?
I'm right on the cusp of Generation X. Like, I am right, I think, on the edge, 1965. I think before me, I think it's baby boomers are right before me. Like, the boomer generation.
No, but there is, like, a
Those
very
dickheads.
There's a very small, like, year range where technically, yeah, you're Gen X, Dad.
Yes.
Yeah, you're
I
Gen
am
X.
technically Gen X. That is proven. I've made a Gen X movie. I'm Gen X. And though I was born in Canada, I'm a U.S. citizen. I love this country and I love the freedoms that it provides. I'm grateful for them every single day. And I'm grateful for the various processes that we have, and that they even work barely is a miracle, because people are pretty chaotic in general.
Yeah.
And so I really like. Obviously, freedom from tyranny can be represented in in our country and blah 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 and all of that. But because I'm a filmmaker, and because I live under the pleasure of, or rather, I live under the terrible sacrifices that were made so that I could be a filmmaker like this. So I really, really appreciate that. And more than any other aspect of that, because there are movies that are basically propaganda. There are big corporate films that are corporate propaganda, and then there are some that are made to push giant political agendas, and they get pushed from the top into Hollywood. I mean, what is the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, other than a gigantic lobby that and the MPAA rather is a gigantic lobby. They're both lobbies. They're both just like, super PACs, and so is the Writers Guild, and it's all political and everything. But none of that really. What I'm interested in is just the artistic expression angle of it. And when I think about artists who are truly independent, I think of guys, like Russ Meyer,
Don Coscarelli,
George Romero. I think these are guys who they shepherd their projects generally from beginning to end, and they're really unique in their vision. And the guy I wanted to talk about today, who I think is just, even though the movie I really want to talk about is maybe not a
definitely, it's his probably one of the
it's one of his
two.
most
It's like one of
studio movies. In fact, this was the one I think he did back to back with his other big studio film. And the person I'm talking about is Ralph Bakshi. And the movie in particular that I want to talk about, which I only just seen, having somehow avoided it most of my life, other than little bits and pieces here and there. I never could find an entry to it because I always found the main character a little distasteful. But this time we sat down and we watched it, and it was American Pop. Ralph Bakshi's rotoscoped animated extravaganza, gigantic for him production of American Pop.
Yeah, so for those of you,
which his spectacular about America and American history, and traveling basically through and understanding entertainment inside of American history, and how the desire to succeed eventually happens even after multiple generations, that we stand upon many, many generations before us, that we don't, have the luxuries that we have right now, were it not for the many, many generations prior to us. And in his case, he's tracking one family played by one actor, Ron Thompson.
That's the craziest part about the movie, is that and I knew that only one guy was credited, like featuring Ron Thompson, but I didn't really realize until the very, very end of the movie that, wait a second, he has been playing every generation of man.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because like the movie starts out and
it starts out in the old country with like, during the pogrom, and when the Jews are being chased out by Cossacks and they're killing everybody, and those with faith are staying behind to stand.
His father
basically behind. And in Bakshi's case, I'm sure this was the history of his family. In some aspect, I'm sure that he's
drawing from his
family and telling the story of his family in some capacity. His ancestor, we'll call it, is like a rabbi and basically stays behind. And I'll tell you, that opening scene was so intense and so full of full of feeling, but full of violence toward the ability to self-express. And which, what is a rabbi? What is a priest? These are people who are basically, what is a preacher? They are in some ways performers who are performing a play or an idea. And so in many ways it is an early form of entertainment, and it's one that where we derive our morals and our ethics from, and we do that through movies as well, or at least we should be doing it through movies, and we should be doing it more. And I think Bakshi is very aware of this when he tells the story, because truthfully, this is a very unpleasant story full of a lot of unpleasant people who aren't making it. Most of the people in the movie don't make it. They struggle endlessly.
It follows like the generations
as people emigrating to America and struggling to become something, anything, and chasing the dream and the promise of what America can bring.
But the thing about the movie that is like really it shines a light on is also like how no matter how hard your parents work, you have the ability also to throw it all away. And because it kind of goes to this like cycle of generational wealth a little bit, because like the young boy that comes to America and works his butt off becomes very successful with the mob, and then when he has his son goes
The
off
mob
to work
via entertainment, via vaudeville,
via vaudeville.
via vaudeville. Yeah, basically.
And he and then like when his son grows up, like he doesn't really want it.
Yeah, and
so
part
he
of that
goes
is
to war.
Yeah, and part of that is
to die.
exactly.
And then his
oh my god!
son-
And can I just stop you for a moment and just say that war scene, that World War I combat scene,
And when he goes and plays the piano.
with the airplanes and the piano scene with the German Danke, and like all of that that war sequence was so powerful. I'm choking up thinking about it right now. It was so powerful and so it recalled all of the war sequences nightmarishly portrayed in Wizards. And I'm sure also, of course, Lord of the Rings, which I haven't seen in many, many years.
So interestingly enough, though, American Pop is actually one that Ralph Bakshi did not write, which I find fascinating. It was actually written by Ronnie Kern. Mm-hmm. So, because when most people will know Ralph Bakshi from Fritz the Cat, I think it's like his most popular.
Yeah, well,
then maybe Wizards.
Fritz the Cat is like the big one. When we were at Video Archives, it was like they were all in like the cult section because his stuff was like so non-mainstream and so art film like, and so not following the rules, which is one of the things I absolutely love about him is he doesn't follow the rules.
Oh no, he definitely does not.
And Fritz the Cat, of course, was the big one, the big hit. Heavy Traffic and Wizards. I don't believe at Archives at that time had Coonskin, but Coonskin is an incredible movie. You love Coonskin,
I
right?
love Coonskin, but also out of the ones that he actually he animated, because he does rotoscoping. He's like the father. I always like to tell people like he's basically like the father of rotoscoping, even though he's not.
Yeah, I mean, like Winsor McKay was doing, I believe, was doing rotoscoping back in the silent era, on one reelers, and so there was, and there's Cab Calloway dancing, which is done like that, and so people have been doing it since the very beginning, but. In the 1970s, he picked it up and started applying it and then using actual film backdrops in the background, like New York street scenes. And then because he's Bakshi, he's doing this kind of underground comics version of that, which, I mean, no one had ever seen before. And then suddenly Wizards comes out.
It's so New York,
when
too.
Wizards hit the scene in theaters, and when I saw that at Del Amo back in 1977, when that movie hit screens, it was mind-blowing. It was unreal. It was counterculture, and it was pop, and it was colorful. It was what an amazing movie.
So it's funny because like the ones that he's written, so Fritz the Cat, Heavy Traffic, Coonskin, Wizards, and Hey Good Lookin'. And then when you go to like something like Cool World, he did not write, and I know that was a very difficult production for him. Fire and Ice, he did not write, but that is an amazing movie and also a collaboration with the great Frank Frazetta. Actually,
well, it's funny because these are all the studio movies,
I take
basically.
it back. Frank Frazetta and Ralph Bakshi are the original writers on Fire and Ice, but they had two other guys, Jerry Conway and Roy Thomas came in.
They were writers in the way that they just gathered together all of Frank Frazetta's art and all of his art, and they put it all together and said, what if it was like this and what if it was like that? And then somebody came up with the story.
Frank Frazetta's, I think, granddaughter.
That movie was made the way music is made, probably.
Yeah, but Frank Frazetta's granddaughter runs several Instagram accounts for Frank Frazetta, like their museum and also his page. And she is a wonder. Oh my God, she responded to one of my Instagram comments once. I felt so happy. But she really champions her grandfather's work through Instagram. And she's shared like Fire and Ice collaboration things, like how they work together. And it's really cool to see. And then, of course, Lord of the Rings was not his.
Lord of the Rings, I think that was probably the, like the big studio movie for him.
That came right after
Wizards. I mean, the popularity of Wizards. Wizards was a movie that opened up in real theaters. And this was the time when Dungeons and Dragons was, huge and happening. And The Hobbit had, I can't remember if the Hobbit movie had.
I think it had already come out.
The Rankin Bass Hobbit movie that had come out.
But I love, like, now that I'm thinking about all these different movies, like, yes, Ralph Bakshi, he's totally an American independent filmmaker. Like, he is so New York. But, like, Coonskin, for example, it's like Looney Tunes. Like, he's riffing on Looney Tunes, like, with Brother Rabbit, Brother Bear, and Preacher Fox. And they're in, like, the seedy Harlem.
Yeah, it's like the Harlem version of.
And they have Miss America. She he is
Looney
like
Tunes.
on the poster, like all big and buxom.
Yeah, you've got
and
the
like,
cell for it.
And I have my favorite cell that I have is of her in my bedroom.
It's funny. When I was a kid, we went and saw Lord of the Rings, and my mom and dad had been divorced, and she was dating this guy who was a Vietnam vet, and he would have serious flashbacks every now and then, and kind of flip out, and literally would be hiding in the dark in the middle of the night, screaming that the Chinese were coming over the hills, and like he had seen some tough stuff. And so he was like always flipped out. And so we went and saw Lord of the Rings, not knowing this. And, it's a cartoon. And even though it's a cartoon, there's going to be orc battles and stuff like that. I don't think he was prepared for what Bakshi does. Like that war sequence in American Pop that I'm speaking of, the World War I sequence, how intense that is, how intense it is to rotoscope imagery, filmed imagery, because suddenly the cartoon, which already has a high expressive value, is connected by motion to reality. I mean, I think people are probably used to this now because of so much digital puppetry that goes on, and animation and motion capture and performance capture and stuff like that. But back then, this was really something, unusual. Actually, I hadn't really thought about how Beowulf in some ways,
Yeah, technically mocap is
I only wish it looked like Fire and Ice. I honestly, if I could retake Beowulf and just take exactly what we did and just put it through an Instagram filter, and maybe, maybe
Instagram filter.
Whatever.
Okay, Dad,
I don't have Instagram anymore.
You are going too far. You're too far. But I was going to say,
well, somebody out there can put it through an AI filter.
No, stop. No,
do it.
No.
Pump
No
it through,
one,
please.
Okay, I'm gonna bleep my dad out right now, because no one who listens to my show is allowed to make AI art of art. It's not happening. I'm so against it. You cannot.
No, it's not that I want to change the movie. I just want to have it look more like Waking Life. Someone could run it through Rotoshop, for example. You wouldn't have to use AI. Rotoshop requires human artistry, and you could put it through the Rotoshop software that I can't remember what that guy's name is.
That is a really, really
Bob
good...
Sabiston. Bob Sabiston's...
Isn't Keanu Reeves in that movie?
No, he's in Scanner Darkly.
Yes,
and
that is what I'm thinking of.
He's in Scanner Darkly,
Thank you.
but Waking Life is one of my favorite films, and that is Bakshi-like because it does the same thing. And so I actually would be very interested in seeing a version of Beowulf like that.
I've actually never seen a Waking Life, and I've never seen a Scanner Darkly. I just always recognize the posters for those.
I used to show you Waking Life when you were a child.
Okay, so then
when you were a baby,
I can log that on Letterboxd. I can log that on Letterboxd then.
So I used to say, okay, I'll put you down.
God, you guys, if you guys ever
your
wondered,
iPad, which in those days was a little tiny TV.
An iPad? Yeah, I did not have an iPad.
You had an iMac, though.
I did have an iMac. I was a kid of technology. I remember fondly when we would go up to Mammoth Mountain for Christmas and New Year's, and you would give Ever and I each had a laptop, but it was back in the day when the laptop had the interchangeable batteries, and we had a power plug in the car. You got it modded out to have a power plug, so Ever and I, what we would do is we would keep the computer plugged in, but we'd have 6 batteries, and then if you kept the computer plugged in, you could take out the battery and then put the new one in.
We had a whole system worked
and so we had a whole system, and I used to play Zoo Tycoon in the car. Those are such good memories. So good. But anyway, I think of Ralph Bakshi's stuff, and it is so American. Heavy Traffic, it's all underground. Coonskin, it's all that. Wizards is all about World War II essentially, because he finds the Nazi...
it's him processing struggles between good and evil. Good, basically just wanting to live happily on our, on its own, and evil wanting to spread and control and corrupt everything. And actually, this is a common theme because Fire and Ice is basically the same idea.
Tiny village being destroyed and stuff.
Yeah.
But Wizards, what I love about it though is where he learns evil is through the real footage that Bakshi incorporates of World War II, because he has uncovered it.
Yeah.
And so that's how he learns what evil is.
There are moments in it that are so visual, and they're musical moments, and they're so wild.
The ending of the movie.
To watch, and the ending of the film, which is just. extremely psychedelic, but basically tracking through multiple people a single character arc
Yeah.
on what it takes, and by doing so representing what America is. And it's basically the guy in the end of the movie, without just giving it away, I don't care. You should have seen it by now, so I'm gonna spoil it now, I guess. Is, it's a drug dealer. He's a drug dealer for a big rock band, and like Manson, he's basically their drug dealer, like Charles Manson. He's basically their drug dealer who's bringing them drugs all the time, and he finally gets a shot because he won't give them their drugs one day.
Well, but also it's like because he's the most talented one.
That's America, man.
But also like out of all of the generation, because like
or at least that's a statement on America.
His father, who came before him, was a songwriter and a really good one, but he got super, super drugged out and stuck in the drug scene and has these like crazy overdose sequences in the cornfield.
Yeah.
Like those were like wild. I was like, oh my God, I would feel so sick right now.
That whole cornfield sequence is just crazy.
And how he layers it and how he changes it. And also, like, I think they're at Woodstock.
Yeah.
They have like the Woodstock drug sequence also. Because the cornfield is like when he finds out that the woman has died. And he goes on like this crazy thing. But he has this like son from this girl in this cornfield.
Yeah.
And he basically recognizes him when he's on tour again. Like, who's your dad? And it's
He keeps letting the bad events hold him down.
yeah, and so this guy, like, he has a chance to rise and lets the bad events hold him down. But then because he's just so depressed and so drugged out, he goes to New York and he takes his, who we assume is his son based on like all the story that we've had before, with him. And then eventually just abandons him, teaches, like, instead of, he pawns the kid's harmonica he pawns his guitar and sends someone to bring him drugs.
Yeah.
And gives him the harmonica, and he's like, sell this. Like, just don't sell it all in one place. That's what he tells him, and he teaches him that. And so this kid who had the most talent is kind of forced to sell drugs, and then eventually does get his break, though. But it's really wild. It's like a weird arc, and also it's like you think about it, if it starts with a child who's escaped war and who comes and like whose mother dies in the fire in like the quilt making
the
factory.
normal movie arc thing is the kid who escapes from war then succeeds,
and
like,
he does technically succeed,
well, he does,
but not really.
But yeah, he allows generations to slip, like, as you follow the progression of this family, he realistically portrays like the difficulty of the struggle, which is mostly you don't make it.
That's the thing about Bakshi, though, is he's never afraid to just say...
He's hardcore. He's telling you how it is, man. This is the streets.
That's the thing. He's never afraid to say how dirty something is and how bad something is. And that
this is dirty. It's bad. It sucks. The drug. You got to be dealing drugs in order to get a break. And you go do something idealistic and you find yourself getting shot in the back by Nazis.
Yeah.
It's like
and even in Wizards, it's like in the end, it's like what he just like how that movie ends. It's like he's not afraid just to expose like it's not always a happy ending. It's not always a good thing that you have to do. And also Bakshi's art, besides this, because he sells paint, he's still alive, and if you wanted a Ralph Bakshi animation cell, go on eBay. He has an official store. He will sign it for you. I believe it's his son that runs it, but he also sells original paintings, and his original paintings are freaky wild, and it's all from the Coney Island. He's really obsessed with Coney Island and clowns, and he made a Coney Island movie. I think you can see it on YouTube. It's really freaky. I don't like it.
Yeah, like this whole like clown obsession thing. The people who were
the last days of Coney Island is what it's called.
Yeah,
and you can see it on YouTube. But if you go to his website, you can buy original Ralph Bakshi clown paintings, and they are so freaky. I don't want one, but
well, it's better than getting a Gacy clown painting.
Oh God, I would not want that. I would much rather have. What's up with like the clown?
I don't know if it's better then. I shouldn't say it's better or worse. I mean, everyone
they're
is an
very
artist
artistic. No, but
like at least I'd rather support Ralph Bakshi.
No,
I'd rather support a true American independent
hero
who makes movies about independence.
But yeah, so you can still support him as an artist if you so please and so want to by buying his animation cells and buying his art.
And that is the price we must pay for independence.
That is true. I think the one important thing, though, is to differentiate, because earlier you said like that an independent follows his movie the entire way through. Because like Peter Hyams, is not an independent, but
You
he's
know,
a holistic filmmaker.
He's not, and yet Peter Hyams is. I mean, I almost think of him as an honorary Canadian, and he's not Canadian. He's a New York guy, but I think of him as a Canadian in some ways because he's made so many movies in Canada and he knows the system so well. He's just so good at what he does. I mean, oh, is it over?
Yeah.
Did I just lose the beep?
That's all the time that we have for today. But Dad, is there any final thought that you'd like to share with the audience?
Love one another, because on one hand we're all Americans, and to our listeners all around the world, we're all citizens of this realm, and so we're all in it together. And so there is a way to be independent and to practice independence and to respect and love your neighbor.
Thank you so much to my guest, Roger Avary, for coming on to the show. If you'd like to keep up with my dad, he is still off Instagram, but you can do so on his website, avary.com. I'm Gala Avary, and this has been The Gala Show. Happy 4th of July, everyone.
Happy 4th.
The Gala Show is brought to you by Insertomatic. This episode was executive produced by Roger Avary and produced by Gala Avary. Music composed by Andy Milburn. As always, I'm your host, Gala Avary. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved. Despite me sharing the same last name with this charity, I don't have any affiliation with it, besides the fact that the issue is very near and dear to my heart. Did you know that in the United States, 2.7 million children currently have a parent in prison, and it's estimated that 10 million children have experienced parental incarceration at some point in their lives? I was one of these kids, and as an adult, I am really grateful to be able to give back to Project Avary. Their mission is to build leadership from within by supporting community through programs such as mentoring and outdoor education, and also to remove the stigma surrounding having a parent that's incarcerated. You don't have to feel alone. If you know a kid who could use these resources or would like to donate money or time to the charity, please go to Project Avary, that's AVARY.org, to check out what this amazing charity is all about. Again, that's projectavary.org. Thank you guys, from the bottom of my heart.